What up, what up, what up? I'm BAIR, and this is the BAIR exam, where we examine some of the illest verses and bars in hip-hop history. Yeah, as you can see, I had to wear my LA hat today. So we're gonna take it out to the west side and show California some love like Pac just came home. Today's episode, we're gonna be breaking down Kendrick Lamar's second verse from his debut single, HiiiPoWeR, which was released in 2011 on his album Section 80.
Section 80, HiiiPoWeR.
Visions of Martin Luther staring at me. If I see it how he seen it, that would make my parents happy. Sorry mama, I can't turn the other cheek. They want to knock me off the edge like a fucking widow's peak. And she always told me pray for the weak. Them demons got me, I ain't prayed in some weeks. Dear Lord, come save me, the devil's working hard. Probably clocking double shifts on all of his jobs. Frightening. So fucking frightening, enough to drive a man insane. I need a license to kill. I'm standing on a field full of landmines, doing the moonwalk, hoping I blow up in time. Cause 2012 might not be a fucking legend, trying to be a fucking legend, the man to mankind. Who said a black man in the Illuminati? Last time I checked, that was the biggest racist party. So get up off that slave ship, build your own pyramids, write your own hieroglyphs. We call this shit HiiiPoWeR. So the song HiiiPoWeR was actually produced by another great MC by the name of J. Cole. A lot of people don't know that J. Cole and Kendrick have collaborated over the years, but this was actually the very first collaboration. Kendrick once said that J. Cole played him about 10 tracks, and he jokingly said, I wanted 11 of them because all of them were that hot. And this is the very first track that they did out of the original batch that Kendrick got from J. Cole. Kendrick Lamar lays down an incredible verse. But before we get into breaking down the actual verse, I think it's important to put everything in context, right? Everything has context, and context is important. So you gotta understand where a person's from, the time period they're living in, whether they're male or female, what race they are, all those things play a factor into someone's mindset. So let's get to Kendrick. He's from Compton, California, all right? Basically, you know, the LA area is the home of gangs in America as far as gang banging. So that's an environment that he's growing up in. He's also growing up in a time, in a place, I should say, in Los Angeles where there's a lot of history of corruption with police and police brutality. So all those things factor into his mindset when it comes to him as an artist and as a writer. All right, so let's get into the verse now. Kendrick starts out the verse by referencing the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when he says, visions of Martin Luther staring at me. If I see it how he seen it, that would make my parents happy. Now, Martin Luther King was known for believing in nonviolent protests, peaceful protests. So Kendrick here is saying if he's seen it that way, if he had that type of view or outlook on life, that would please his parents. Obviously, you know, most people's parents have a mindset where they want their children to be safe, they want them to be peaceful, they want them to be respectful. So he's saying if he adopted that mindset of Dr. Martin Luther King, that would make his parents happy. He doesn't see it that way. So in the next line, he says, sorry mama, I can't turn the other cheek. Now, him turning the other cheek is kind of a double reference because Dr. King, in this sense, Dr. King had, Reverend Dr. King, who was a pastor, had, you know, a lot of Christian values. He was raised in the church, and obviously he was a pastor. So, you know, he believed in the mindset of turning the other cheek, which is a Christian Bible reference to the Sermon on the Mount. And so in the New Testament of Matthew, and I believe in Luke, they reference it, turning the other cheek, meaning if someone, not enacting revenge, being more peaceful. So if someone laid a hand on you, if they slapped you in the right cheek, then you would offer them the left cheek. If they stole something from you, you would offer them something else. Then Kendrick says, sorry mama, I can't turn the other cheek. They want to knock me off the edge like an effing widow's peak. Now, a widow's peak, he's talking about is some people have a hairline where
middle, it hangs over a little bit of the main part of the hairline, and it forms a point, and that's called a widow's peak. That comes from olden times where women who lost their husband would wear a widow's cap or mourning cap, and it's basically like a hooded garment, and it comes down over their head, and it would have a point at the end, and they would call that a widow's peak. So that's where that term comes from, but it's saying like it's on the edge, it's over the edge of where your hairline should be, the base of your hairline is. I thought it's kind of cool though in our culture. Within the city, you have a lot of slang terms, and growing up where I'm from, we referred to that as an eddy. If you had a widow's peak, it's referred to as an eddy, which comes from Eddie Munster of the 1960s sitcom The Munsters, which was basically about a friendly family of monsters, and they were called the Munsters. And the son's name was Eddie Munster, and he had a very exaggerated widow's peak, or what we would later refer to as an eddy.
He says that his mother tells him to pray for the weak, pray for his enemies, and he's saying he's in such a space right now that he's not able to do that. And he says, you know, these demons got me. I haven't prayed in some weeks. It's interesting because the very next line, he cries out for God, and he says, "Dear Lord, come save me. The devil's working hard." Probably clocking double shifts on all of his jobs. And you know, that's interesting because from Dr. King all the way through those bars there, you have references, religious references, if you will, spiritual references, and how he's tying all this in together early on. You know, it's just things that he may have been dealing with mentally at that time. That confliction of, you know, maybe the values that he was raised on within his household and to where he's at as a young man and the things he's dealing with in his community and in society. Then he goes on to say, frightening, so effing frightening. Enough to drive a man insane. I need a license to kill. Now you're talking wordplay, creativity. This is the type of stuff I like. This is what I can appreciate as a fellow MC. One who really using some skill, right? Just little subtle things like that. So he's saying the things that he's going through, they're enough to drive a man insane. So he's talking about, you know, driving. You get the visual of driving insane. And then the next line leads into, I need a license to kill. Referring to, you know, having a weapon, being able to legally carry and protect himself, maybe to unleash some of this frustration and rage that he has, whatever the case may be. But I just like the wordplay, right? The skill as an MC. Again, MCing here, standing on a field full of landmines, doing the moonwalk, hoping I blow up in time. So, you know, he's doing the moonwalk, which was a dance made popular by the iconic Michael Jackson in the 1980s. And he's saying, you know, who Michael Jackson widely considered the greatest entertainer of all time. And so Kendrick, in a sense, is saying that he's doing the moonwalk, he's entertaining, so to speak. He's an entertainer, he's an artist. So he's doing this, he's expressing himself creatively in hopes that his art, his creativity, his showmanship, his entertainer, the part of him that's an entertainer, reaches the masses and he becomes a success before the world comes to an end. And he's saying, I hope I do it in time because 2012 might not be an effing legend. So what he's referring to there is 2012 being the end on the Mayan calendar. Now you got to keep in mind that this song came out in 2011. So what he's saying is a lot of people during that time and previous many years prior had concerns or worried or brought up the world coming to an end, basically an apocalypse in the year 2012. And a lot of that comes from, the Mayan calendar cutting off at the year 2012. So a lot of people believed that was the end of the world. So he's saying it might not be a myth. So I'm hoping that I blow up before the world comes to an end. So he says, trying to be a effing legend, the man of mankind. Now in the movie I Am Legend, Will Smith's character was, after an apocalypse of sorts, he's left to be the last man, the last human being on the planet. So Kendrick is also saying, I believe, in a sense, if 2012 isn't a legend and these are our last days, he wants to be a survivor, if you will. He's a survivor, and he can be the man of mankind to restart this whole society, this world. And I think that can be kind of, you can look at that in a double way and apply it to hip hop. Hip hop at that point, when he's coming in the game, it's kind of on a downside as far as lyrically and MCs and just, I guess, the true essence, if you will, of hip hop from that standpoint. So he could also be referring to it as that. When this whole thing crumbles, I'll be the last MC standing and that'll survive this whole apocalypse. So you could take it like in a literal sense of the world that he's referring to, or in the artistic sense of hip hop, where, he can kind of resurrect this whole thing and find a way out. Now, it's particularly interesting that he makes an I Am Legend / Will Smith reference, because he ties that in to the next line, which Kendrick does a lot in his art, which I have a lot of respect for that, for him as an MC and as a writer. But particularly in this verse, a lot of the lines tie into the one previous or the one that follows. So there's this connection, this thread from the very first bar all the way to the end, and I really appreciate and respect that. But the Will Smith thing, the very next line after the legend, I Am Legend reference, he speaks about the Illuminati, and he says, "Who says a black man's in the Illuminati?" Last I checked, that was the biggest racist party. Now, me being a hip hop head and obviously a lover of the art and MCing, I would have to obviously acknowledge the late great prodigy of Mobb Deep, who to my knowledge was the first person to mention or speak of the Illuminati on record. And he did that on LL's I Shot Ya remix, which came out in 1995.
Illuminati want my mind, soul, and my body. Secret society, trying to keep their eye.
So, big shouts out to Prodigy. He went on, obviously, after that to mention it in his music and interviews, to talk about it in books that he had written. So, the fact that in 1995, he's talking about this, and you can tie a thread all the way to 2011, when Kendrick Lamar is writing about this very same subject, but from a different perspective than Prodigy first mentioned it back in 1995. I thought that was pretty interesting. Now he closes out the verse by giving you a jewel, giving you some inspiration, giving you power, in a sense, to play on the HiiiPoWeR theme of the whole song. He says, "Get up off that slave ship, build your own pyramids, write your own hieroglyphs." Now I love the way he ends this verse with this bar, with those two bars, and he basically is saying, not only do I think he's referring to the previous line, which he did throughout the verse, the reference to the Illuminati, I just think in general he's speaking like, get up off that slave ship mentally, get up off the slave ship. The slave trade, which is starting, basically in the 1500s. You have the first African slaves reaching Virginia and North America, what would become Virginia and North America in 1619. And you know, you're talking about 12 million people, an estimated 12 million people that were transported or sold into slavery from Africa. Talking about anywhere between 1 to 2 million people that died either on the way here across the Atlantic Ocean or in that first seasons when they got to the Americas. So I think it's pretty important what he's saying here at the end, because the thing is that slaves weren't allowed to read or write. You could be killed for trying to learn how to read, trying to learn how to write, for communicating in that manner. He's telling you mentally, get off the slave ship of the things that society is selling you, of your lower self, and remember who you are and build your own monuments that will stand the test of time through your works, through your actions. See, the thing about the pyramids in Egypt is, one, they're respected to this very day. We look at them in awe. They've taken mathematicians and scientists and they've tried to figure out how these people in ancient Egypt built these pyramids with the tools of the day, and they still can't figure it out. And he's saying, build you your own pyramids, which is interesting because to me, that's exactly what he did with this song, HiiiPoWeR.
This is a gangster with a conscience.
Visions of Martin Luther staring at me. If I see it how he seen it, that will make my parents happy. Sorry mama, I can't turn the other cheek. They wanna knock me off the edge like a fucking widow's peak. And she always told me pray for the weak. Them demons got me, I ain't prayed in some weeks. Dear Lord, come save me, the devil's working on. He probably
Hip Hop Heads, y'all know the deal. If you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Also, please, please, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel by clicking this link right here. Last but not least, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think of K-Dot's verse. Is it a classic or not? Obviously we do, or it wouldn't be on the bar exam. Once again, long live hip hop.